7 container homes. Every single one under $100,000, fully finished, move-in ready. And every single one of them, if you dropped a real estate agent into the driveway without telling them the price, would get a guess somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000. That's not an exaggeration for the thumbnail. That's the actual reaction owners get when guests walk through the front door for the first time. I'm going to show you all 7 today. Real layouts, real square footage, real cost breakdowns, and after each one, I'm going to tell you the exact design decision that made it look expensive when it wasn't. Because that's the part nobody explains. It's never one single thing. It's a handful of specific choices, repeated correctly, that separate a container home that looks like a job site trailer from one that looks like it belongs in a magazine. Number 4 on this list is the one that surprised me the most when I dug into the actual numbers, so stick around for that one specifically. Let's start with number 1. If you're new here, this is where we break down container homes and alternative housing with real cost data, not fantasy numbers pulled from a builder's marketing brochure. Hit subscribe now, because by the end of this video, you're going to have a completely different idea of what $100,000 can actually build in 2026. Design 1, the single container glass box. This is the simplest build on the entire list, and it's proof that simple, done with intention, can outperform complicated every single time. 1 40-foot high cube container, 320 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, open kitchen and living space. The entire long wall facing the best view on the property is cut out entirely and replaced with floor-to-ceiling sliding glass doors, 6 panels running the full length of the container. The opposite wall stays mostly solid steel, coated in a deep matte black elastomeric finish, the kind we've talked about before on this channel, which eliminates the industrial shadow pattern and gives the exterior a smooth, architectural read from the road. Total cost, including the container, structural cutting and reinforcement around the glass opening, spray foam insulation, a mini split system, polished concrete floors, and a full kitchen and bathroom, came in at $84,000. What makes this feel like a $500,000 house isn't the square footage, it's the ratio. A full third of the exterior wall surface is glass, which means the interior is flooded with light from a single direction all day. And because there's no competing window on the opposite wall, your eye reads the whole room as one continuous, dramatic space instead of a boxed-in container. Guests consistently describe it as feeling like a boutique cabin, not a shipping container, and the reason is simple. Nobody's brain associates floor-to-ceiling glass with cargo steel. The contrast is what sells it. Design 2, the stacked double with a cantilever. This one's for anyone who needs real square footage without a wide footprint, and it uses a structural trick that most container builders never attempt on a budget build. 2 40-foot high cube containers, one stacked on top of the other, but the upper container is offset, cantilevered 4 feet beyond the footprint of the lower one, creating a covered outdoor porch underneath without adding a single extra structural post. 640 square feet total, 2 bedrooms, 1 full bathroom downstairs, and a half bath upstairs, with the primary bedroom occupying the cantilevered section, giving it windows on 3 sides instead of the usual 2. Structural engineering for the cantilever, plus the steel reinforcement needed to support that offset load, added roughly $9,000 over a simple stacked design, but the payoff is architectural. From the street, that 4-foot overhang reads exactly like the cantilevered second stories you see on $500,000 modern builds in Austin and Scottsdale. It's the single detail that convinces people this wasn't a container kit ordered off a website. Total finished cost, $96,500. The lesson here is one that shows up again and again in expensive-looking architecture. An overhang, a cantilever, anything that makes a building appear to defy gravity slightly reads as custom design, even when the underlying structure is 2 stacked boxes. Design 3, the courtyard pair. This is a 2-container build, but instead of stacking or joining them end to end, the containers sit parallel to each other, roughly 14 feet apart, connected by a covered walkway with a small open-air courtyard between them. One container is the living and kitchen space, 320 square feet. The other is the bedroom and bathroom, another 320 square feet. Total enclosed living space, 640 square feet, plus the covered walkway connecting them, which functions as an outdoor dining area that costs nothing to heat or cool because it's open to the air on 2 sides. Building cost for both containers, insulation, systems, and finishes ran $72,000. The covered walkway and courtyard hardscaping, pavers, a simple pergola structure, and basic landscaping added another $11,000. Total, $83,000. What makes this one feel expensive is something we've talked about before on this channel with larger home layouts: separation. It's the exact same psychological shift that makes multi-wing family homes feel bigger than their square footage. On a container budget, you can replicate that same trick with 2 units and 14 feet of open air between them. Number 4 is coming up, and this is the one where the numbers genuinely surprised me when I priced it out, so don't skip it. Design 4, the Shou Sugi Band Single. This build takes the exact same 320 square foot single container footprint as Design 1, but achieves a completely different aesthetic result using a technique that costs almost nothing in materials and everything in labor, which is exactly why it's the surprising one. Shoshugiban is a Japanese wood charring technique, traditionally used on cedar siding, where the wood surface is burned with a torch until it chars, then brushed and sealed with a natural oil finish. The char layer protects the wood from insects, rot, and UV degradation for decades without any chemical treatment, and it produces a deep, almost black, textured surface with visible wood grain running through it. Builders have started applying furring strips of inexpensive cedar or pine directly over sections of the container's steel exterior, then charring that wood cladding in place. The raw cedar board material for a full container's exterior cladding costs somewhere between $1,800 and $2,800, dramatically cheaper than stone, veneer, or high-end metal cladding. The labor to properly char, brush, and oil seal the wood, though, runs $4,500 to $7,000 because it has to be done by hand, one section at a time, with real technique. That's why this one surprised me. The material cost is almost nothing. The finished look is extraordinary. Deep charcoal black wood texture with visible grain, completely different from the flat elastomeric coating we discussed on Design 1, reads as an intentional, artisanal exterior finish that most people assume costs 5 figures on its own. Total build cost for this one, including the full interior finish package, polished concrete, mini split, and a small covered entry, came in at $89,000. The owner told me guests routinely ask if the exterior is reclaimed barnwood. It's cedar furring strips and a torch. Design 5, the Breezeway Triple. This is the largest build on today's list, and it borrows a layout concept we've covered before with dogtrot-style homes, adapted for container construction. 3 40-foot standard containers, arranged in a U shape around a central open breezeway. 2 containers form the living wings, one for the kitchen and living area, one for 2 bedrooms and a shared bathroom, and the third container sits perpendicular, connecting the 2 wings and housing a mudroom, laundry, and a small home office. The central breezeway, the open space enclosed on 3 sides by the containers, functions as an outdoor living room, and because it doesn't require insulation, drywall, or climate control, it adds usable square footage without adding to your finished square footage build cost. Total enclosed living space across all 3 containers, 960 square feet. Building shell, insulation, and systems for all 3 units ran $78,000. Interior finishing across the full 960 square feet, kitchens, bathrooms, flooring, and fixtures added another $16,500. The breezeway hardscaping and a simple shed roof connecting all 3 roof lines into one continuous structure cost $4,000 more. Total, $98,500, just under the ceiling for this list. This is the build that feels the most like a genuine architect-designed home rather than a container project. Because from the outside, the 3-container U-shape reads as a proper compound with a real floor plan, not a stack of boxes. The open breezeway does exactly what we've discussed with larger family layouts. It gives every room a courtyard-adjacent view, and it creates the psychological sense of scale that a straight single-container run never achieves, no matter how nicely you finish the interior. Design 6, the rooftop deck conversion. This build takes a single 40-foot high cube container and does something most first-time container builders never consider. It treats the roof as usable outdoor square footage instead of dead space. The container itself holds 320 square feet of interior living space, one bedroom, one bathroom, kitchen, and living area, built to the same standard finish level as Design 1. But on top, the builder added a simple steel-framed rooftop deck, roughly 260 square feet, with a cable railing system, composite decking boards, and a small pergola structure over one corner for shade. Structural reinforcement to the container roof to safely support deck loading, foot traffic, furniture, and railing anchor points added $7,500 to the build. The decking materials, railing system, and pergola came to another $9,200. Total cost for the container shell and interior finish, $79,000. Add the rooftop deck package, and the finished total lands at $95,700. What makes this one feel disproportionately expensive is the same principle we talked about with courtyards on larger homes. Outdoor living space that doesn't count against your interior square footage, but functions as genuine usable room. A 260 square foot rooftop deck, furnished with an outdoor sofa and a small dining set, gives this 320 square foot container the functional footprint of a home twice its size, and rooftop decks specifically carry a strong luxury association in most buyers' minds, the kind of feature people associate with penthouse living, not a shipping container on a rural lot. Design 7. The Twin-Gable Hybrid. This last one blends container construction with light conventional framing to solve the one problem containers are worst at: ceiling height and roof drama. Two 40-foot containers sit side by side, 12 feet apart, forming the base of the structure, 640 square feet of container living space between them. But instead of a flat container roof, the builder framed a conventional gable roof structure spanning both containers and the gap between them, creating a great room in the center with a vaulted ceiling reaching 16 feet at the peak, well beyond what any container's native 9-foot ceiling height could ever offer. The two containers handle bedrooms, bathrooms, and utility space, while the framed center section, which sits on its own simple foundation between the containers, becomes the kitchen, dining, and living area, with exposed structural framing left visible as a design feature rather than hidden behind drywall. Container shell and finish work for both units ran $58,000. The framed center section, including the vaulted roof structure, foundation, and full interior finish, added $34,000 more, since this portion is built using conventional framing techniques rather than container conversion. Total, $92,000. This is the build that most convincingly erases any trace of container home from a first impression, because the vaulted center room is the first thing anyone sees walking in, and 16-foot ceilings with exposed structural beams are a feature people associate directly with high-end custom architecture, not budget housing. The containers essentially disappear into the wings, doing the quiet, cost-efficient work of housing bedrooms and bathrooms, while the framed center section does all the visual heavy lifting. Now, before we wrap up, let's talk about what every single one of these 7 builds has in common, because it's not luck, and it's not a specific finish package. It's a strategy, and once you see it, you'll notice it in every container home that photographs like it cost 5 times what it did. First, every single one of these builds spends real money in exactly 1 or 2 focal points and stays disciplined everywhere else. The glass wall on Design 1, the cantilever on Design 2, the charred cedar on Design 4, the rooftop deck on Design 6, the vaulted ceiling on Design 7. Nobody on this list spent lavishly across the board. They identified the one architectural move that would define the entire home's first impression, and they put their budget there, while keeping flooring, hardware, and secondary finishes intentionally simple and consistent. Second, every one of these builds treats the exterior surface as seriously as the interior. A raw, unfinished, corrugated steel exterior is the single fastest way to make a container home look like exactly what people expect a container home to look like. Whether it's an elastomeric coating, charred cedar cladding, or a framed section that hides the steel entirely, every build on this list made a deliberate decision about how the exterior would read from the road, because that's the very first data point a guest or a buyer processes before they've even reached the front door. Third, every one of these builds uses outdoor space as free square footage. The courtyard between the containers in Design 3, the breezeway in Design 5, the rooftop deck in Design 6. None of that space required insulation, drywall, HVAC, or finished carpentry, and all of it dramatically increased the perceived scale and livability of the home without touching the finished square footage budget line. And fourth, every single one of these owners acted as their own general contractor or came extremely close to it. That's not a coincidence. We've talked before on this channel about how a hired GC typically takes 10 to 20% of your total project cost as a coordination fee. On these builds, ranging from $72,000 to $98,500, that would have added anywhere from $7,000 to nearly $20,000 back onto the price tag. Every dollar these owners saved by managing subcontractors themselves, scheduling the concrete crew, coordinating the electrician, sequencing the spray foam before drywall, went directly into the one or two focal point decisions that made these homes look expensive in the first place. Here's the honest reality check, because this channel doesn't do fantasy numbers. None of these 7 builds include land cost. All of these figures assume you already own a buildable lot, or that land cost is being tracked separately in your budget. None of them include well and septic if you're building somewhere without municipal utilities, which, depending on your region, can add anywhere from $15,000 to $27,000 on its own. And every single one of these owners did some portion of the finish work themselves, whether that was charring cedar boards by hand, laying, flooring, or managing subcontractors directly, because acting as your own GC, as we just covered, is where a meaningful chunk of this savings actually comes from. If you're planning to hire out every single piece of this from day one, budget 15 to 25% higher than the numbers I gave you today. So here's what I want you to take away from all 7 of these. A $500,000 look was never actually about a $500,000 budget. Every build on this list proves the same underlying principle. Pick one architectural decision that defies expectations, whether that's a cantilever, a vaulted ceiling, a rooftop deck, or a wall of glass. Fund that decision properly and let everything else in the build stay simple, consistent, and disciplined. That's the entire playbook. It's not a secret. It's just a decision most first-time builders never make on purpose, because nobody ever laid it out for them, item by item, the way we just did today. If you're planning a container build right now, drop a comment and tell me which of these 7 designs you're leaning toward, and tell me your rough budget ceiling too, because I read every single comment and I want to know which direction to take the next cost breakdown video. Was it the glass box, the cantilever, the courtyard pair, the charred cedar build that surprised me the most, the Breezeway triple, the rooftop deck, or the Twin-Gable hybrid with that 16-foot ceiling? I genuinely want to know which one you'd actually build. If this gave you a completely different idea of what $100,000 can do with container construction, hit that like button. It helps this channel reach more people who are trying to build smart instead of settling for what a builder's standard package looks like. And subscribe if you haven't already, because every single week we're breaking down real container home numbers, real design strategy, and the honest trade-offs nobody puts in the brochure. See you in the next one.